Sarah Mitchell sat at her desk on Friday afternoon, staring at her computer screen. The office was buzzing with excitement about the team-building event that evening. Everyone kept talking about the fancy hotel where it would take place. Sarah did not share their excitement. She wanted to go home, put on comfortable clothes, and watch something on television, but she knew she had to go. Her boss had made it clear that attendance was important. She was 28 years old and had worked at the marketing firm for 3 years. Sarah was good at her job. She created campaigns for clients, wrote copy, and managed social media accounts. Her coworkers liked her well enough. She was quiet, professional, and always met her deadlines. Nobody really knew much about her personal life, and that was exactly how Sarah wanted it. At 5 o'clock, Sarah packed her bag and walked with her colleagues to the hotel. It was only 2 blocks away from the office. The hotel was one of those old, elegant buildings with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The lobby was massive, with tall ceilings and gold decorations everywhere. In the center of the lobby sat a beautiful black grand piano. Sarah noticed it immediately and felt something twist in her stomach. She quickly looked away. The company had reserved a private room on the 2nd floor for the event. There would be drinks, food, and some team-building games. Sarah planned to stay for exactly 2 hours, then make an excuse and leave. She had perfected the art of attending work events without really participating. She would stand near the back, smile when appropriate, and avoid drawing attention to herself. The cocktail hour began at 6. Sarah grabbed a glass of water and found a spot near the window. She watched her coworkers laugh and chat. Marcus Thompson, one of the sales representatives, was holding court near the bar. He was loud and confident, always the center of attention. Marcus was the kind of person who loved being in the spotlight. He told jokes, did impressions, and seemed to feed off the energy of a crowd. Sarah had never liked Marcus much. He was not mean exactly, but he had a way of pushing boundaries. He would make jokes at other people's expense and call it fun. If someone got upset, he would say they were being too sensitive. Sarah had learned to stay out of his way. About 30 minutes into the event, Sarah made the mistake of returning to her desk to grab her phone charger. She had left it plugged in that afternoon. The office was quiet and empty now. Everyone was at the hotel. Sarah unplugged her charger and was about to leave when she heard footsteps behind her. Marcus stood in the doorway of her cubicle. He had a drink in his hand and a grin on his face. Sarah felt immediately uncomfortable. "Hey, Sarah, what are you doing up here?" "Party's downstairs," Marcus said. "Just getting my charger," Sarah replied, holding it up as proof. She tried to move past him, but he was blocking most of the doorway. "Wait, hold up," Marcus said, pointing at a small photo frame on Sarah's desk. "Is that you?" Sarah's heart dropped. The photo showed a young girl, maybe 12 or 13 years old, sitting at a piano. She wore a formal black dress and had her hands positioned on the keys. Her face was serious, concentrated. Behind her was a banner that read, "Youth Piano Championship." Sarah had forgotten that photo was there. She had kept it on her desk for years, though she was not sure why. Maybe it was a reminder of who she used to be, or maybe it was a reminder of why she had changed. "Yeah, that's me," Sarah said quietly. "Long time ago." Marcus picked up the frame and studied it closely. His eyes lit up with excitement. "No way, you played piano?" "Like seriously played?" "Used to," Sarah said, reaching for the frame. "Can I have that back?" Marcus held it away from her, still grinning. "This is amazing. Were you in competitions and everything?" "It was just a kid thing," Sarah said. Her voice was tight. "I don't play anymore." "But you were good enough for championships." "That's incredible." Marcus was practically bouncing now. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" "Because it's not relevant," Sarah said. She finally managed to take the frame from his hands and set it back on her desk. "Can we go back to the party now?" But Marcus was already pulling out his phone. "Dude, there's a piano in the hotel lobby. A really nice one. You should play something." Sarah felt ice run through her veins. "No. Come on. It would be so cool. Everyone would love it." "I said no, Marcus." Sarah's voice was firmer now. She picked up her charger and her purse. "I don't play anymore. I haven't played in 15 years. 15 years? Why'd you stop?" Sarah did not answer. She walked past him and headed toward the elevator. Marcus followed her, still talking. "I bet it's like riding a bike, you know? Once you learn, you never really forget. My mom played piano when she was a kid, and she can still play some stuff even though she hasn't practiced in forever." Sarah pressed the elevator button repeatedly, willing it to arrive faster. "Your mom and I are not the same person. I'm just saying it would be fun. When do you ever get to show off a hidden talent like that? The elevator doors opened. Sarah stepped inside and pressed the button for the second floor. Marcus jumped in just before the doors closed. "Marcus, please drop it," Sarah said. She was staring straight ahead, not looking at him. "I don't get why you're being weird about this. It's just a piano." Sarah did not respond. The elevator ride felt like it lasted forever. When the doors finally opened on the second floor, Sarah walked quickly toward the event room. But Marcus stayed right beside her, still talking. "You know what? I think you're just nervous. That's totally normal. But once you sit down and start playing, it'll all come back to you. Muscle memory and all that." They entered the room where the party was happening. Sarah immediately headed for the corner where she had been standing before, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Hold on," he said. "I've got an idea." Before Sarah could stop him, Marcus walked to the front of the room where their boss was standing. He whispered something in her ear. The boss, Linda Chen, looked surprised and then smiled. She tapped her glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "Excuse me, everyone. Can I have your attention for a moment?" The room gradually quieted down. All eyes turned to the front. Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Marcus just informed me that we have a very talented musician in our midst," Linda announced. "Apparently our very own Sarah Mitchell is a classically trained pianist." Sarah's face burned. Everyone was looking at her now. Some people looked surprised. Others looked curious. A few were already smiling with anticipation. "I didn't know that about you, Sarah," Linda continued. "Marcus suggested that maybe you could play something for us down in the lobby." "What do you say?" "I really don't think that's a good idea," Sarah said. Her voice came out quieter than she intended. "Oh, come on, don't be shy," Linda encouraged. "It would be such a treat for everyone." "Yeah, Sarah. Play something," someone called out. Other voices joined in. The peer pressure was building. Sarah looked around the room desperately. She saw faces she worked with every day, all looking at her expectantly. Some were genuinely interested. Others just wanted entertainment. Marcus stood near the front, grinning like he had done something wonderful. "I really can't," Sarah said, louder this time. "I haven't played in years. I wouldn't be any good." "I'm sure that's not true," Linda said kindly. "But no pressure, of course. We just thought it would be fun." Sarah felt trapped. She knew what would happen if she refused. People would think she was being difficult. They would say she was not a team player. In an office culture where everyone was expected to participate and be enthusiastic, saying no was almost impossible. "Come on, Sarah," Marcus said, walking over to her. "Just one song. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to hear you play." More people started encouraging her. The chanting began softly at first, then grew louder. "Play, play, play." Sarah looked at all the faces around her. She thought about saying no again. She thought about walking out. But she also thought about Monday morning, about working with these people for years to come, about being labeled as the person who refused to do something fun for the team. "Okay," she heard herself say. The word felt like it came from someone else's mouth. "I'll try. But I'm really rusty." The room erupted in cheers and applause. People started moving toward the door, eager to get down to the lobby. Marcus was practically glowing with excitement. He had orchestrated this whole thing, and now he was going to see it through. Sarah followed the crowd downstairs in a daze. Her hands were already starting to shake. She could feel her heart beating faster. The marble lobby suddenly seemed huge and exposed. The piano sat in the center like a black beast waiting to devour her. About 30 people from the company gathered around the piano. Some hotel guests also stopped to watch, curious about the crowd. Sarah approached the piano slowly. She looked down at the keys, so white and perfect. She had not touched a piano in 15 years. She had not even let herself think about playing. "What are you going to play?" Marcus asked eagerly. Sarah's mind went blank. She could not think of a single piece of music. Then, without meaning to, she remembered. Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. The last piece she had ever played in public. "Chopin," she said quietly. "Perfect. Go ahead whenever you're ready." Sarah sat down on the bench. The height was adjustable, and she turned the knob to raise it slightly. Her hands hovered over the keys. She could feel everyone watching her. She could hear them breathing. Someone's phone camera was pointed at her, recording. She closed her eyes and took a breath. Then she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The first few notes came out clear and beautiful. Sarah felt a shock run through her body. Her fingers knew what to do. They moved across the keys like they had their own memory. The melody was familiar, comforting even. For maybe 5 seconds, Sarah thought maybe this would be okay. Then the memories hit her. She was 13 years old again, sitting on a stage in front of hundreds of people. The lights were too bright. Her dress was too tight. She had been practicing this piece for months, preparing for the youth championship. Everyone said she was going to win. Her father had made sure of that. He had pushed her to practice 4 hours every day after school. He had hired the best teachers. He had invested everything in her musical career. Sarah's breathing became faster. Her fingers continued to play, but she was no longer controlling them. She was back on that stage. She was reaching the difficult part of the piece, the part with the complicated run of notes. She had practiced it 1,000 times. But in that moment, in front of all those people, her fingers faltered. In the hotel lobby, Sarah's fingers faltered in exactly the same place. She hit a wrong note, then another. The beautiful melody became discordant and ugly. Sarah tried to recover, tried to find her place again, but she could not. Her hands were shaking too badly now. The room started to spin. Sarah could not get enough air. Her chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing her lungs. She tried to take a breath but could only manage shallow gasps. Her vision blurred. The faces around her became shapeless blobs. The sound of her own breathing filled her ears, loud and desperate. She was having a panic attack. Sarah's hands crashed down on the keys, creating a horrible clash of notes. She bent forward, her forehead nearly touching the piano. She could not breathe. She could not think. All she knew was terror and the crushing weight on her chest. People rushed forward. She heard voices, but they sounded far away and underwater. Someone touched her shoulder and she flinched. Someone else brought water. Marcus stood frozen a few feet away, his smile gone, replaced by confusion and growing horror. "Give her space," someone said. "She needs air." Sarah felt hands helping her up from the bench. Her legs were shaky, but they held her weight. Someone guided her toward the hotel entrance, toward the fresh air outside. She stumbled through the doors and into the cool evening. The breeze hit her face and she gasped, finally getting a full breath into her lungs. She stood there on the sidewalk, bent over with her hands on her knees, breathing hard. Tears streamed down her face. She was not sure when she had started crying. Her whole body was shaking. Behind her, she could hear the concerned voices of her coworkers. She could hear Marcus saying something about not knowing, about just thinking it would be fun. Sarah straightened up slowly. She wiped her face with her hands. When she turned around, she saw about a dozen people standing near the hotel entrance, all looking at her with various expressions of concern and pity and awkward discomfort. "I need to go home," Sarah said. Her voice sounded strange and hoarse. "Are you okay?" Linda asked, stepping forward. "Should we call someone?" "I'm fine. I just need to leave." Sarah started walking. She did not wait for permission or approval. She just walked, moving quickly down the sidewalk, away from the hotel, away from the piano, away from all those staring faces. She heard someone call her name behind her, but she did not turn around. She kept walking until she reached her apartment building 6 blocks away. Only when she was inside her apartment with the door locked behind her did Sarah finally let herself collapse. She sank down onto the floor in her entryway and cried. She cried for the girl she used to be, for the music she used to love, for the 15 years she had spent running away from a piano bench. She cried because Marcus had forced her into something she was not ready for. She cried because she had let herself be forced. Eventually, the tears stopped. Sarah pulled herself up and went to her bedroom. She changed into pajamas even though it was only 8 o'clock. She got into bed and pulled the covers over her head. Her phone was buzzing with messages, but she ignored them. She did not want to talk to anyone. She did not want to explain. She just wanted to disappear. As she lay there in the darkness, Sarah thought about the look on Marcus's face when she had crashed her hands onto the keys. He had looked shocked, confused, like he could not understand what had gone wrong. His joke had backfired spectacularly. His moment of fun had turned into someone else's nightmare. Sarah knew she would have to face everyone on Monday. She knew there would be questions and concerns and probably awkward apologies. But that was a problem for later. Right now, in this moment, all Sarah could do was lie in her bed and try to forget the feeling of those piano keys under her fingers and the sound of her own desperate breathing echoing in that hotel lobby. She had spent 15 years avoiding pianos. After tonight, she would spend 15 more. Sarah woke up on Saturday morning feeling like she had been hit by a truck. Her head ached. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her whole body felt heavy and tired. Even though she had slept for almost 12 hours, she lay in bed for a long time staring at the ceiling, not wanting to move. Her phone sat on the nightstand, still buzzing occasionally with new messages. Sarah finally reached for it and looked at the screen. 37 unread messages, 15 missed calls. She scrolled through them quickly. Most were from coworkers asking if she was okay. A few were from Linda, her boss, expressing concern. 3 were from Marcus. Sarah opened Marcus's messages first. The first one, sent at 9 o'clock the night before, said, "Hey, are you okay?" That got pretty intense. The second one, sent 2 hours later, said, "Sorry if I pushed too hard. Didn't mean to upset you." The third one, sent at midnight, just said, Sarah did not reply. She put the phone face down on the nightstand and got out of bed. Her apartment was small but comfortable. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that opened into a living room. She had lived there for 4 years. It was her safe space, her refuge from the world. She made coffee and sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket even though it was not cold. The events of the previous night kept replaying in her mind. The piano. The crowd. The feeling of not being able to breathe. The shame of breaking down in front of everyone she worked with. Sarah knew she could not go to work on Monday. She could not face those people yet. She opened her laptop and sent an email to Linda, saying she was not feeling well and would be taking a sick day. Then she closed the laptop and tried to distract herself with television. But she could not focus on anything. Her mind kept wandering back to the hotel lobby, to the feeling of those keys under her fingers. Around noon, there was a knock on her door. Sarah jumped, startled. She was not expecting anyone. She looked through the peephole and saw her best friend Rachel standing in the hallway, holding a grocery bag. Sarah opened the door. Rachel took one look at her and frowned. "You look terrible," Rachel said, walking inside without waiting for an invitation. "Thanks," Sarah said dryly. "I've been texting you since last night. When you didn't respond, I figured something was wrong." Rachel went into the kitchen and started unpacking the grocery bag. She had brought soup, bread, juice, and chocolate. So what happened? Sarah followed her into the kitchen. "How did you know something happened?" "Because you always respond to my texts within an hour. It's been almost 20 hours. Also, you have that look on your face. The closed-off, something bad happened look." Rachel had been Sarah's best friend since college. They had met in a marketing class during their sophomore year and had been close ever since. Rachel was the only person who knew some of Sarah's history, though not all of it. She knew Sarah used to play piano. She knew Sarah had quit suddenly as a teenager, but she did not know why. Sarah sat down at the small kitchen table. Rachel heated up the soup and brought 2 bowls over. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Sarah started talking. She told Rachel about the photo on her desk, about Marcus finding it and getting excited, about being dragged to the piano in the hotel lobby, about the crowd gathering around her, about starting to play and then completely falling apart. Rachel listened without interrupting. When Sarah finished, Rachel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "That guy is a complete jerk," Rachel said firmly. "Who does that to someone?" "He didn't know," Sarah said, though she did not really believe her own words. "He thought he was doing something fun. He pushed you into something you clearly didn't want to do. That's not fun. That's bullying." Sarah had not thought of it that way. She had been so focused on her own breakdown, her own failure, that she had not considered Marcus's role beyond being thoughtless. But Rachel was right. He had ignored her repeated refusals. He had made it impossible for her to say no without looking bad in front of their boss and coworkers. "I can't go back there," Sarah said quietly. "I can't face them all on Monday." "Then don't. Take a few days. Take a week if you need to." "I can't just disappear for a week." "Why not?" "You're sick." Mentally and emotionally sick counts just as much as physically sick. Rachel took a bite of her soup and looked at Sarah carefully. "But I think we need to talk about something else." Sarah knew what was coming. She could feel it. The question Rachel had wanted to ask for years but had been too respectful to push. "Why did you really quit piano?" Rachel asked gently. Sarah stared down at her soup. She had never told anyone the full story. Not her college roommates. Not her other friends. Not even Rachel. She had kept it locked inside for 15 years. like a secret that would lose its power if exposed to light. But sitting there in her kitchen, feeling raw and broken from the night before, Sarah realized she was tired of carrying it alone. It was at a competition, Sarah began. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The Youth Piano Championship. I was 13. It was a really big deal. There were contestants from all over the state. The winner would get a scholarship to a prestigious music academy and a chance to perform with the symphony. Rachel nodded, encouraging her to continue. I had been preparing for months. My dad made sure of that. He had me practicing 4 hours every day minimum, sometimes more. He hired this really strict teacher who would rap my knuckles with a stick if I made mistakes. My fingers would be bruised sometimes, but my dad said that was the price of excellence. Sarah paused. She had not thought about Mr. Peterson, her old piano teacher, in years. He was a small man with gray hair and cold eyes. He never smiled. He never praised. He only criticized and corrected. My dad was really intense about the whole thing. Sarah continued. He had wanted to be a professional musician himself. He played violin, but he never made it. He ended up working as an accountant.
I think he saw me as his second chance.
If I could succeed as a musician, then somehow that would make up for his own failures. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, Rachel said. I didn't mind at first. I actually loved playing when I was younger. The piano made sense to me. It was like solving puzzles. I loved the way different notes combined to create something beautiful. But as I got older and my dad got more intense, it stopped being fun. It became this obligation, this thing I had to do perfectly or I was letting everyone down. Sarah took a shaky breath and continued. The day of the competition, I was so nervous I felt sick. But my dad said I would be fine once I got on stage. He said nerves were normal. He gave me this long speech about how this was my moment to prove myself, to show everyone what I was capable of. Sarah could still remember standing backstage in her black dress. The dress had been too tight and she had told her mother, but her mother said it looked elegant and that was what mattered. Sarah could hardly breathe in it, but she did not complain again. I was the 8th performer. I had to wait backstage listening to everyone else play. Some of them were really good. Some made mistakes. When my turn came, I walked out on that stage and there were hundreds of people in the audience. The lights were so bright I could barely see anything past the first few rows. I sat down at the piano and started to play. Sarah's hands were trembling now just from remembering. Rachel reached across and held them steady. I was playing Chopin, the same piece I tried to play last night, Nocturne in E-flat major. It's this beautiful flowing piece, kind of melancholy but also hopeful. I had played it perfectly 100 times in practice. I knew every note, every dynamic change, every little detail. What happened? Rachel asked softly. I got to this one part. There's this run of notes. It's technically difficult. Your fingers have to move really fast and precisely. I had practiced it over and over. But when I got to that part on stage with all those people watching, my mind just went blank. I couldn't remember what came next. My fingers fumbled. I hit wrong notes. I tried to recover, but I was too panicked. I kept making more mistakes. Sarah could still hear the sound of those wrong notes echoing through the auditorium. She could still feel the hot shame spreading through her body. I managed to finish the piece, but it was a disaster. I knew it, everyone knew it. When I stood up to bow, the applause was polite but unenthusiastic. I walked off that stage knowing I had failed. But you were 13, Rachel said. Everyone makes mistakes. My dad didn't see it that way. Sarah's voice became harder now. This was the part she had never told anyone, the part that still hurt the most. I went backstage and my dad was waiting. I thought maybe he would try to make me feel better, tell me it was okay, that I had done my best. But instead, he grabbed my arm really hard and pulled me into this empty dressing room. He was so angry. His face was red and his voice was shaking. He said I had humiliated him, that I had wasted years of his time and money, that I had proven I didn't have what it takes to be a real musician. Rachel's expression was horrified. He said that to you? He said worse things. He said I was a disappointment, that I had choked when it mattered most, that I was weak and pathetic. He went on for maybe 10 minutes. I just stood there crying. My mother tried to calm him down, but he ignored her. Finally, he said that if I was going to embarrass him like that, then maybe I shouldn't play piano at all. Sarah wiped her eyes. The tears had come without her realizing it. Partly, But it was also because every time I thought about playing, I would remember that moment on stage. The feeling of my mind going blank, the sound of wrong notes, the shame of failing in front of everyone. It all got tangled up together. The piano stopped being something I loved and became this symbol of my biggest failure. Rachel stood up and came around the table. She pulled Sarah into a hug. Sarah hugged her back, holding on tight. "I'm so sorry that happened to you," Rachel said. "And I'm sorry that idiot Marcus brought it all back." They stayed like that for a while. Finally, they pulled apart and Sarah wiped her face with her sleeve. "What happened with your dad?" Rachel asked. "Are you still in contact?" "Barely. We exchange cards on birthdays and holidays. I see my parents maybe once a year. It's always awkward. We don't talk about anything real, certainly not about the piano or that competition. It's like it never happened. He's never apologized. I don't think he even remembers what he said to me that day. Or maybe he does and he just doesn't think he did anything wrong. That's really sad. It is what it is." Sarah stood up and started clearing the soup bowls. "I've made peace with it. Or at least I thought I had. But last night proved I haven't really dealt with any of it. I've just been avoiding it for 15 years. Rachel helped her clean up the kitchen. They moved into the living room and spent the rest of the afternoon watching movies. Rachel did not push Sarah to talk more about the piano or her father. She just stayed with her, providing comfort through her presence. As evening approached, Rachel said she needed to head home. "But I want you to promise me something," she said as she put on her coat. "What?" "Promise me you'll think about talking to someone about this. A therapist, someone who can help you process all this trauma." Sarah hesitated. She had never been to therapy. The idea made her uncomfortable. But she also recognized that what had happened last night was not normal. Most people did not have panic attacks when asked to play piano. Most people did not carry around 15-year-old wounds that could be ripped open so easily. "I'll think about it," Sarah said. "Good. And text me tomorrow. Let me know how you're doing." After Rachel left, Sarah ordered takeout and tried to relax. But her mind kept going back to the piano. Not the traumatic performance at age 13, not the disaster at the hotel, but earlier memories of being 8 years old and learning her first real piece of music. The pride she had felt when she played it all the way through without mistakes. Memories of being 10 and discovering Beethoven, the way his music made her feel powerful and alive. Memories of being 11 and composing her first original melody, simple and childish but hers. Sarah realized something she had never fully acknowledged before. She had loved playing piano. Before her father's intensity and Mr. Peterson's strictness and the pressure of competitions, she had genuinely loved it. The music had been hers. It had been joy and expression and creativity. Somewhere along the way, other people had taken that away from her. And then she had let them keep it for 15 years. Sarah picked up her phone and opened a search engine. She typed in "therapists for performance anxiety near me." A list of results appeared. She clicked on a few, reading their bios and specialties. One name stood out: Dr. Michelle Torres. She specialized in performance anxiety and childhood trauma. She had good reviews. Sarah saved the website to her bookmarks. She was not ready to make an appointment yet, but she had taken the first step. She had admitted that she needed help. That was something. That night Sarah dreamed about pianos. But they were not nightmares. In her dreams she was young again, maybe 9 or 10. She sat at a piano in an empty room. No audience, no judges. No father watching with critical eyes. Just her and the piano and the music. In the dream she played something simple and beautiful. Her fingers moved easily across the keys. And when she finished, she smiled. When Sarah woke up on Sunday morning, she felt different. Not healed. Not fixed. But different. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward, a way to reclaim something that had been taken from her. She did not know what that path looked like yet. But for the first time in 15 years, she was willing to find out. She spent Sunday resting and thinking. She sent messages to a few coworkers, thanking them for their concern and assuring them she was okay. She avoided opening Marcus's messages. She was not ready to deal with him yet. On Sunday evening, Sarah made a decision. She opened her laptop and composed an email to Dr. Michelle Torres. She explained briefly what had happened and said she was interested in scheduling a consultation. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then Sarah opened her work email and wrote to Linda. She said she needed to take the entire week off to deal with a personal health matter. She apologized for the short notice but said it was necessary. She sent that email too. Finally, Sarah allowed herself to open Marcus's messages. She read through them again. They were surface-level apologies. Sorry if I pushed too hard. Didn't mean to upset you. They were the apologies of someone who did not really understand what they had done wrong. Someone who thought the problem was that Sarah was too sensitive, not that he had violated her boundaries. Sarah typed out a response. Then she deleted it. She typed another one. Deleted that too. She went through 5 different drafts before settling on something short and direct. What you did Friday night was not okay. I told you multiple times I didn't want to play. You ignored me and pressured me in front of everyone until I had no choice. That's not fun. That's not a joke. That's forcing someone to do something they clearly didn't want to do. I need you to understand that. She sent it before she could overthink it. Marcus's response came within minutes. I seriously didn't think it was that big of a deal. You played piano as a kid. There was a piano. It seemed like a cool thing. I didn't know you'd freak out like that. Sarah felt anger rise in her chest. You didn't know I'd freak out like that was not an apology. It was blame. It was saying the problem was her reaction, not his actions. She typed back, whether you thought it was a big deal doesn't matter. I told you no. Multiple times. That should have been enough. This time Marcus took longer to respond. When he finally did, his message was shorter. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. It was not the apology Sarah wanted, but it was something. She did not respond. She put her phone down and went to make dinner. As she cooked, Sarah thought about what Rachel had said. That what Marcus had done was bullying, that he had made it impossible for her to say no without consequences. Sarah had spent so much time blaming herself for breaking down that she had not fully considered his role in creating that situation. She thought about work culture and peer pressure and how hard it was to set boundaries when everyone around you was telling you to just go along with things. She thought about all the times she had done things she did not want to do because saying no felt too difficult or too risky. Maybe this whole disaster had a lesson in it somewhere. Maybe it was about learning to set boundaries and stick to them, even when people pushed back. Maybe it was about standing up for herself instead of always trying to make other people comfortable. Or maybe, Sarah thought as she sat down to eat her dinner, maybe it was about something even bigger. Maybe it was about facing the things she had been running from for 15 years, about looking at her trauma directly instead of pretending it did not exist. Sarah's phone buzzed with a new email notification. She checked it. Dr. Torres had responded already. She had an opening on Tuesday afternoon if Sarah was available. Sarah confirmed the appointment. She had no idea what would come from therapy. She did not know if talking about her father and the competition and all her complicated feelings about piano would actually help, but she was willing to try. She was tired of running. She was tired of letting one bad day when she was 13 control the rest of her life. Sarah finished her dinner and cleaned up the kitchen. She took a long shower and got ready for bed. Before turning off the light, she looked at the photo on her phone. It was the same photo that had been on her desk at work. 13-year-old Sarah in her black dress, hands on the piano keys, face serious and concentrated. She looked at that girl and felt a mixture of sadness and compassion. That girl had been carrying so much pressure, so many expectations. She had been trying so hard to be perfect, to make her father proud, to prove she was worthy. And when she had made one mistake, everything had come crashing down. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered to the girl in the photo. I'm sorry for abandoning the piano. I'm sorry for abandoning you. She set the phone on the nightstand and turned off the light. Tomorrow would be difficult. This whole week would be difficult. But Sarah was ready to start the hard work of healing. She was ready to face what she had been avoiding for so long. And maybe, somewhere down the line, she would sit at a piano again. Not because someone forced her. Not to prove anything to anyone. But because she wanted to. Because she remembered what it felt like to love music. That night, Sarah slept peacefully for the first time in days. Tuesday afternoon arrived faster than Sarah expected. She had spent Monday and most of Tuesday trying to distract herself from thinking about the therapy appointment. She cleaned her apartment thoroughly. She organized her closet. She went for long walks around her neighborhood. But now it was 2 o'clock and she was sitting in the waiting room of Dr. Michelle Torres's office. The office was in a quiet building near downtown. The waiting room was small but comfortable. Soft blue walls, a few plants, chairs that were actually comfortable instead of the hard plastic ones you found in most medical offices. Gentle music played from a speaker somewhere. Sarah sat with her hands folded in her lap, trying not to fidget. At exactly 2:15, a door opened and a woman stepped out. She was maybe 40 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a bun and warm brown eyes. She wore casual professional clothes and had a friendly smile. "Sarah?" she asked. Sarah stood up. "Yes, I'm Dr. Torres. It's nice to meet you. Come on in." Sarah followed her into the office. It was larger than she expected. A desk sat in one corner, but most of the room was taken up by two comfortable chairs facing each other with a small table between them. There was a couch against one wall. Bookshelves lined another wall, filled with books about psychology, trauma, music therapy, and various other topics. "Have a seat wherever you're comfortable," Dr. Torres said. Gesturing to the chairs and couch, Sarah chose one of the chairs. Dr. Torres sat in the other one. She had a notebook and pen, but she did not immediately start writing. "So," Dr. Torres began, "in your email you mentioned having a panic attack related to playing piano. Can you tell me more about what happened?" Sarah took a breath and began explaining. She told Dr. Torres about the photo on her desk, about Marcus, about being pressured to play in the hotel lobby, about the panic attack and breakdown. Dr. Torres listened attentively, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of acknowledgement. When Sarah finished, Dr. Torres asked, "Had you experienced panic attacks before this?" "Not like that one. I've had moments of anxiety, sure, but nothing where I couldn't breathe and the room was spinning. And you said you haven't played piano in 15 years. What made you stop?" This was the harder part. Sarah told Dr. Torres about the competition when she was 13, about forgetting the notes and making mistakes, about her father's reaction backstage, about his anger and disappointment and the cruel things he said. Dr. Torres's expression remained neutral and professional, but Sarah could see compassion in her eyes. "That must have been incredibly painful," Dr. Torres said when Sarah finished, "especially coming from your father, the person who should have supported you." "He was dealing with his own stuff," Sarah said automatically. "His own failed dreams. That's true. But his pain doesn't excuse how he treated you. You were 13 years old. You made a mistake in a high-pressure situation. That's completely normal." His response was not normal or appropriate. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. She had thought those things before, but hearing someone else say them made them feel more real, more valid. "You mentioned in your email that you're interested in working through performance anxiety and childhood trauma," Dr. Torres continued. "What would healing look like for you? What would you like to achieve through therapy?" Sarah thought about this. She had not really considered specific goals. She just knew she needed help. "I don't want to have panic attacks," she said slowly. "I don't want to be controlled by something that happened 15 years ago. I want to be able to think about piano without feeling sick. And maybe, eventually, I want to be able to play again. Not for anyone else. Just for myself." Dr. Torres smiled. "Those are good goals. Very achievable goals. But I want to be clear with you. Healing from this kind of trauma takes time. There's no quick fix. We'll be doing some difficult work, looking at painful memories and feelings you've been avoiding. Are you ready for that?" "I think so," Sarah said. "I mean, I'm scared, but I'm more scared of living the rest of my life like this." That's a good place to start. They spent the rest of the session talking about Sarah's history with piano, the early years when she loved it, the gradual shift as her father became more intense, the pressure of competitions and lessons with Mr. Peterson. Dr. Torres asked questions that made Sarah think about things she had never considered before. "You said you loved playing when you were younger," Dr. Torres said. "Can you remember a specific moment when it was still pure joy? Before the pressure?" Sarah closed her eyes and thought. A memory surfaced. She was maybe 7 years old. It was Sunday morning. Her family had just come home from church. Her mother was in the kitchen making lunch. Her father was reading the newspaper. Sarah had gone to the piano and started playing around, not practicing anything specific, just improvising, making up melodies. She remembered her mother singing along from the kitchen. She remembered feeling happy and free and creative. "I was 7, Sarah said, opening her eyes. "I was just making up songs. My mom was singing along. It was fun." "That's a beautiful memory," Dr. Torres said. "I want you to hold on to that. Because that's the real relationship you have with piano, the joy and creativity. Everything that came after, the pressure, the competitions, your father's anger, that was other people's stuff that got layered on top of your original love for music. Sarah had never thought of it that way. She had spent so long associating piano with trauma that she had forgotten there was a time before the trauma, a time when piano was simply something she loved. As the session came to a close, Dr. Torres gave Sarah some homework. "I want you to write down your memories of playing piano," Dr. Torres said, "both good and bad. Don't censor yourself. Just write whatever comes to mind." "We'll talk about them next week," Sarah agreed. They scheduled another appointment for the following Tuesday. As Sarah left the office and walked back to her car, she felt strange. Not better exactly, but different. Like something had shifted slightly, like maybe there was a possibility of change. The rest of Tuesday and Wednesday passed quietly. Sarah worked on Dr. Torres's homework assignment. She sat at her laptop and typed out memories. Some were painful. The memory of Mr. Peterson hitting her knuckles with a stick. The memory of her father yelling at her to practice more. The memory of the competition disaster. But some memories were good. Learning her first song. Playing at her grandmother's birthday party when she was 9. The proud look on her mother's face when Sarah performed at a school recital. Writing it all down was exhausting but also cathartic. Sarah cried several times. But she also found herself smiling at some of the good memories. Memories she had buried along with the bad ones. On Thursday, Sarah received an email from Linda, her boss. It was kind and understanding. Linda said she hoped Sarah was feeling better, and that there was no pressure to return until she was ready. She also mentioned that she had spoken with Marcus about workplace boundaries and appropriate behavior. Sarah appreciated that Linda had taken the situation seriously. Marcus had not tried to contact Sarah again since their text exchange. Part of Sarah was relieved. But another part was still angry. He had offered a minimal apology and then disappeared. No real accountability. No effort to understand the harm he had caused. Sarah decided she needed to address this more directly. Not for Marcus's benefit, but for her own. She needed to say her piece. To stand up for herself in a way she had not been able to do in the hotel lobby. She composed an email to Marcus. She took her time with it, revising and editing until it said exactly what she wanted it to say. "Marcus, I want to be clear about what happened Friday night so there's no confusion going forward. When you found the photo on my desk and suggested I play piano, I said no. I said it multiple times. Each time I said no, you pushed harder. You involved our boss. You created a situation where saying no would have made me look bad in front of everyone. That put me in an impossible position. You may not have intended to hurt me, but impact matters more than intent. Your actions triggered a severe panic attack and brought up traumatic memories I've been dealing with for years. I need you to understand that what you did was not okay. It was not harmless fun. It was a violation of my boundaries. I'm not looking for another apology. I'm telling you this because I need you to learn from it. When someone says no to something, respect that. Don't push. Don't pressure. Don't make it about your entertainment or what you think would be fun. Respect people's boundaries. That's all I have to say." Sarah sent the email and felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She did not wait for a response. She did not care what Marcus would say back. She had said what she needed to say. She had stood up for herself. Friday afternoon, Sarah's phone rang. It was her mother. Sarah hesitated before answering. She and her mother talked maybe once a month. Usually it was surface-level conversation about work and weather and nothing important. Sarah never brought up anything real or deep. Neither did her mother. It was easier that way. "Hi, Mom," Sarah answered. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "I'm okay. Just taking some time off work." "Oh? Are you sick?" Sarah paused. She could tell her mother she had a cold or stomach bug. That would be easy. But something made her tell the truth. Maybe it was the therapy session. Maybe it was the work she had been doing all week. Maybe she was just tired of hiding. "I had a panic attack," Sarah said. "Someone pressured me to play piano at a work event." It brought up a lot of old memories. "I'm taking some time to deal with it." There was silence on the other end. Sarah could almost hear her mother's surprise. "Oh," her mother finally said. "I didn't know you still had feelings about all that." All that meaning the competition, the trauma, the way Sarah's father had reacted, the way everything had changed. "I never stopped having feelings about it, Mom. I just stopped talking about it." Another silence. Then her mother said, "Your father was very hard on you back then." "I know that. I should have done more to protect you." This was the closest her mother had ever come to acknowledging what had happened. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Why didn't you?" Sarah asked. "Why didn't you stand up for me?" "I don't know," her mother said quietly. "I was afraid of making things worse, of making your father angrier. I thought if I just kept things calm, everything would blow over. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm really sorry." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I've started seeing a therapist to work through it all." "That's good. That's really good. I'm glad you're getting help." They talked for a few more minutes. Nothing earth-shattering, but it was more honest than their usual conversations. When they hung up, Sarah felt like something small but important had shifted in their relationship. The rest of Friday and the weekend passed peacefully. Sarah continued working on her memories. She also started doing some research on performance anxiety and childhood trauma. She read articles and watched videos. She learned about how traumatic experiences get stored in the body, how certain triggers can bring back the physical sensations of the original trauma, how healing requires processing those memories in a safe environment. On Monday, Sarah decided she was ready to return to work. She was nervous but felt stronger than she had a week ago. She got dressed in the morning and drove to the office. When she walked in, she noticed a few people glance at her, but nobody said anything. Most people just greeted her normally. Linda called Sarah into her office mid-morning. Sarah expected an awkward conversation, but Linda was professional and kind. "How are you feeling?" Linda asked. "Better. I'm dealing with it." "Good. I want you to know that I spoke with Marcus. I made it very clear that what he did was inappropriate. He's been asked to complete sensitivity training, and I want to assure you that if you ever feel uncomfortable or pressured in the workplace, you can come to me directly." "Thank you," Sarah said. She meant it. "I also want to apologize," Linda continued. "I was part of the pressure that night. I encouraged you to play even when you said you didn't want to. I should have respected your no. I'm sorry." Sarah had not expected this. Linda acknowledging her own role in what happened. It meant a lot. "I appreciate that," Sarah said. The rest of the day went smoothly. Sarah caught up on work emails and projects. At lunch, a few coworkers asked how she was doing. Sarah gave vague but friendly answers. She was not ready to tell everyone her story, but she appreciated their concern. Marcus avoided her all day. Sarah saw him once in the hallway. He looked uncomfortable and walked quickly past without making eye contact. Sarah did not try to stop him. She had said what she needed to say in her email. The ball was in his court now. Tuesday came, and Sarah had her second therapy session with Dr. Torres. She brought her written memories and they went through them together. Dr. Torres helped Sarah identify patterns. The way her father's criticism had grown over time. The way the joy of playing had been slowly replaced with fear of making mistakes. The way one bad day at a competition had confirmed all of Sarah's worst fears about herself. "One thing I noticed," Dr. Torres said, "is that you've internalized your father's voice. When you talk about that competition, you use words like disaster and failure. But you also said you managed to finish the piece despite making mistakes. That's actually impressive for a 13-year-old under that much pressure." "But I didn't win," Sarah said automatically. "So, not winning doesn't equal failure. You participated in a high-level competition. You performed in front of hundreds of people. You recovered from mistakes and finished your piece. Those are all accomplishments. But your father told you that you failed and you believed him. You've been believing him for 15 years. Sarah sat with this. Dr. Torres was right. She had never questioned her father's assessment. She had accepted his version of events as truth. But what if there was another way to look at it? "What if you wrote a different story?" Dr. Torres suggested. "Not a story where you're the disappointment who failed, but a story where you're the brave kid who got up on stage and did her best under impossible circumstances." "I don't know if I can do that," Sarah said. "Not yet, maybe, but that's what we're working toward. Rewriting the narrative. Separating what actually happened from the shame and judgment that got attached to it." They spent the rest of the session talking about shame, how it was different from guilt. How shame said I am bad while guilt said I did something bad. How Sarah had been carrying shame for 15 years for something that was not actually shameful. As Sarah drove home after the session, she thought about narrative, about the story she had been telling herself. She had cast herself as the girl who choked under pressure, the girl who was weak. The girl who disappointed everyone. But what if that was not the true story? What if the true story was about a girl who was put under too much pressure by adults who should have known better? A girl who loved music but had that love corrupted by other people's expectations. That night, Sarah did something she had not done in 15 years. She searched for videos of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. She found a recording by a famous pianist and listened to it. Her heart rate increased at first. She felt anxiety creeping in, but she breathed through it and kept listening. The music was beautiful, melancholy and hopeful, just as she remembered. Sarah closed her eyes and let it wash over her. She tried not to think about the competition. She tried not to think about her father's anger. She just listened to the music itself, the notes flowing together, the emotion in each phrase. When the piece ended, Sarah sat in silence for a moment. Then she searched for more Chopin pieces. She listened to nocturnes and preludes and waltzes. Some she recognized from her childhood. Others were new to her. She listened for over an hour, just sitting on her couch with her eyes closed, letting the music exist without judgment or shame attached to it. It was not easy. Several times she felt panic starting to rise and had to pause and breathe. But she kept going. She was not ready to play yet. Maybe she would never be ready. But she could listen. She could let music back into her life in this small way. Over the next few weeks, Sarah settled into a routine. She went to work and did her job. She saw Dr. Torres every Tuesday. She continued writing down memories and processing them. She slowly rebuilt her relationship with music by listening to piano recordings. She joined an online forum for people with performance anxiety and found it comforting to know she was not alone. Marcus eventually sent a response to her email. It was short but seemed more genuine than his previous apologies. "You're right. I didn't respect your boundaries and I should have. I'm sorry for real this time. I'm doing the sensitivity training and trying to learn from this." Sarah appreciated the response but did not reply. She had said what she needed to say. She did not owe him anything more. One evening in late November, about 6 weeks after the hotel lobby incident, Sarah was listening to piano music when she had a thought. A strange, scary, exciting thought. She wondered if she could find a piano to practice on, not to perform, not to prove anything, just to see what it felt like to touch the keys again. She did some research and found a music school about 20 minutes away. They rented practice rooms by the hour. You could book a room and play in complete privacy. No audience, no pressure, just you and the piano. Sarah stared at the website for a long time. Then, before she could change her mind, she booked a room for the following Saturday afternoon. 1 hour, just to try. As soon as she confirmed the booking, she felt panic rise. What was she doing? She could not do this. She was not ready. But another part of her, a stronger part, said she was ready. Ready to try at least. Ready to take back something that had been stolen from her. Saturday came. Sarah almost canceled the practice room 3 different times, but she forced herself to drive to the music school. She checked in at the front desk. A friendly young woman handed her a key and gave her directions to room 7 on the 2nd floor. Sarah climbed the stairs slowly. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. She found room 7 and unlocked the door. The room was small and soundproof. In the center sat an upright piano. Nothing fancy. Just a regular practice piano. Sarah closed the door behind her and stood there for a long moment staring at the piano. This was it, the moment she had been both dreading and longing for. She could leave right now. She could admit this was too much too soon. But she had come this far. She walked over to the piano and sat down on the bench. She adjusted the height. Winter came to the city with cold winds and early darkness. Sarah bundled up in scarves and coats as she made her weekly trips to the music school. Every Saturday afternoon, she spent an hour in practice room 7. Sometimes she played for the entire hour. Other times she spent half the time just sitting with the piano, letting herself feel whatever emotions came up. Progress was slow, but steady. Sarah started with children's songs and simple melodies. When those became comfortable, she moved on to slightly more complex pieces. She bought a beginner's piano book online and worked through it systematically. Her fingers gradually remembered their training. The stiffness eased. The notes came more naturally. Dr. Torres was proud of her progress. They continued their weekly sessions, exploring not just the piano trauma but other patterns in Sarah's life. The way she avoided conflict. The way she prioritized other people's comfort over her own needs. The way she had spent years making herself smaller and quieter to avoid disappointing anyone. "You've been living in fear mode," Dr. Torres explained during one session in December. "Fear of making mistakes, fear of disappointing people, fear of being judged. That's exhausting, and it means you've been surviving instead of living." Sarah knew this was true. She had spent 15 years playing it safe. She took a stable job instead of pursuing anything risky or creative. She dated men who were fine but not exciting because they felt safe. She kept her friendship surface level to avoid being vulnerable. The piano trauma had infected everything. What would it look like to live instead of survive? Dr. Torres asked. Sarah thought about this for a long time. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I've been surviving for so long I don't remember what living feels like." "Let's start small then. What's one thing you've always wanted to do but haven't because you were afraid?" Sarah's mind went immediately to the piano, but that was what she was already working on. She thought deeper. What else had she denied herself? "I used to write songs," Sarah said slowly. "When I was a kid, before everything got so serious with competitions, I would make up melodies and write simple lyrics. Nothing sophisticated, but I liked it. I haven't tried writing anything in probably 16 years. Why not? Because my dad said it was a waste of time. He said if I was going to do music, I should focus on classical piano. That was the real music. Writing silly songs was just playing around. But you enjoyed it." "I did. So what would happen if you tried writing a song now?" Sarah felt resistance immediately. Writing songs felt even more vulnerable than playing piano. Playing piano meant performing something someone else had created. Writing songs meant putting your own thoughts and feelings out there. It meant risking judgment on something deeply personal. "I'd probably be terrible at it," Sarah said. "Maybe, or maybe not. But either way, would it matter? Would being terrible at something you enjoy make it not worth doing?" This was a new concept for Sarah. Her father had taught her that if you could not do something excellently, you should not do it at all. But Dr. Torres was suggesting something different. That doing something for the joy of it was enough. That you did not have to be the best or even particularly good. You could just do it because you wanted to. "I'll think about it," Sarah said. That week, Sarah could not stop thinking about songwriting. Memories kept surfacing. She remembered sitting at the piano as a 9-year-old, making up a song about her cat. She remembered performing one of her original songs at a school talent show when she was 10. Her father had not even come to that performance. He said school talent shows were not serious enough to be worth his time. On Saturday, Sarah brought a notebook with her to the practice room. After warming up with scales and exercises, she tried something new. She played around with different chord progressions, seeing what sounded good together. Then she tried adding a simple melody over the chords. Nothing fancy, just experimenting. It felt awkward at first, self-conscious. But gradually, Sarah got lost in the process. She was creating something, not performing someone else's work. Creating her own. When her hour was up, she had the beginning of a simple melody. Maybe 20 seconds of music. But it was hers. Sarah left the practice room feeling energized in a way she had not felt in years. She had forgotten how good it felt to create, to make something that had not existed before. She spent the whole drive home humming her new melody, already thinking about where it could go next. At work, things had settled into a new normal. Marcus kept his distance, which suited Sarah fine. They were professional when they had to interact, but they were not friends. Sarah was okay with that. She had learned that not everyone needed to be forgiven. Some people just needed to be kept at a distance. Linda had been true to her word about taking boundaries seriously. She had implemented new guidelines for work events. No one would be pressured to perform or participate in activities they were not comfortable with. It seemed simple and obvious, but apparently it had not been obvious before. Several people had privately thanked Sarah for speaking up. Apparently, she was not the only one who had felt pressured at work events. One day in mid-December, Sarah was having lunch in the break room when a coworker named James sat down across from her. James worked in the design department. He was quiet like Sarah, and they had always been friendly in a casual way. "Hey," James said, "I heard you've been taking piano lessons or something?" Sarah tensed slightly. She had not advertised her practice sessions. "Where did you hear that?" "Rachel mentioned it." "I hope that's okay. I wasn't trying to be nosy. It's just that I play guitar and I've been looking for someone to maybe jam with sometime. No pressure or anything. Just for fun, Sarah relaxed. James's energy was completely different from Marcus's. He was not pushing. He was offering. There was a difference. I'm pretty rusty, Sarah said. And I only know classical pieces mostly. That's cool. I'm not very good either. I just play for myself usually. But it might be fun to play with someone else occasionally. Think about it. No big deal if you're not interested. James finished his lunch and left. Sarah sat there thinking. Playing music with someone else felt scary, but it also felt exciting. And James had been clear that it was optional. No pressure, no expectations. Sarah thought about it for a few days. Then she sent James a text. Hey, I might be interested in that jamming idea. Maybe we could try it sometime after the holidays? James responded enthusiastically. Sounds great, no rush. Just let me know when you're ready. As December continued, Sarah kept up her practice routine. She continued working on her original melody, gradually expanding it into something more complete. She also started challenging herself with slightly more difficult classical pieces. Nothing too advanced yet. But she was building her skills back up. The holidays approached. Sarah usually spent Christmas with her parents, but this year she felt hesitant. She was doing so much healing work. She was afraid that going home would set her back. Being around her father always made her feel like a child again. Small and inadequate. She talked about this with Dr. Torres. You don't have to go, Dr. Torres said. You can set boundaries with your parents too. You're an adult. You get to choose how you spend your time and energy. But they'll be upset if I don't come. Maybe. But is avoiding their upset worth sacrificing your own well-being? Sarah had never thought of it that way. She had always assumed that being a good daughter meant doing what her parents expected, even when it cost her something. Sarah called her mother and explained that she would not be coming home for Christmas this year. She said she needed to focus on her healing and that being around her father right now felt too difficult. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I understand. I wish things were different, but I understand. They talked for a while longer. Her mother mentioned that she had talked to her father about everything, about the competition, about what he had said to Sarah backstage, about how it had affected her. What did he say? Sarah asked, not sure she wanted to know. He said he was under a lot of stress back then, that he was frustrated with his own career. He said he may have been too hard on you. Her mother paused. He didn't exactly apologize, but I think it's the closest he's capable of getting to admitting he was wrong. Sarah did not know how to feel about this. Part of her wanted a real apology, an acknowledgement of the harm he had caused, but another part of her recognized that this was probably all she would get from him. Her father was not good at admitting mistakes or expressing emotions. She could wait forever for the apology she deserved, or she could accept that it might never come and find her own peace anyway. Thanks for talking to him, Sarah said. I should have done it years ago. Sarah spent Christmas with Rachel and Rachel's family. It was nice, relaxed, no tension or judgment. Rachel's parents were warm and welcoming. They asked about Sarah's piano practice, and she found herself talking about it enthusiastically. She even told them about the melody she was writing. You should record it when you're done, Rachel's dad said, even just on your phone. That way you'll always have it. Sarah had not thought about recording her music, but it was a good idea, a way to document this journey she was on. After the holidays, January arrived cold and gray. Sarah continued her weekly routine. Work, therapy, practice. I'm not saying you have to play it publicly or for anyone else, but I think there's something powerful in reclaiming that piece for yourself. Right now it still has power over you. Your father's voice is still attached to it. What if you could play it and have it just be music again? Sarah understood what Dr. Torres was suggesting. The nocturne represented her trauma. As long as she avoided it, she was still letting that trauma control her. But if she could face it, play through it, maybe she could take its power away. How would I even start? Sarah asked. The same way you've been doing everything else. Slowly. In private. With self-compassion. You don't have to play the whole thing. Start with the first few measures. See how it feels. If it's too much, stop. You're in control. The next Saturday, Sarah sat in practice room 7 with the sheet music for Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. She had printed it from the internet. She placed it on the music stand and stared at it for a long time. The notes looked familiar. She had practiced this piece hundreds of times as a child. She had played it in her sleep practically. But now it felt loaded with meaning, with history, with pain. Sarah took a deep breath and placed her hands on the keys. She played the first 4 measures. The melody was haunting and beautiful. Her fingers remembered it perfectly, but her heart was pounding. Sweat formed on her palms. She stopped and took another breath. She was okay. She was in a private room. No audience. No father, no judges. Just her and the music. She started again. This time she made it through 8 measures before stopping. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she had not panicked. She had not broken down. She had just played music. Sarah practiced those first 8 measures for the rest of her session. By the end of the hour, she could play them smoothly without her hands shaking. It was progress. Small but real. Over the next few weeks, Sarah gradually worked her way through the nocturne. She added a few measures each session. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes memories would surface and she would have to stop and breathe. But she kept going. She was reclaiming this piece. Note by note, measure by measure. In February, something happened at work. The company was planning their annual spring gala. It was a big event where they celebrated the year's successes and honored top performers. There would be dinner, drinks, and entertainment. Linda sent out an email asking if anyone had talents they would like to share during the entertainment portion of the evening. Sarah read the email and felt her old anxiety spike. But then she thought about everything she had been working on. The healing she had done. The boundaries she had learned to set. The voice she had found. She did not have to perform. No one was asking her to. But what if she wanted to? The thought was both terrifying and exciting. Could she actually choose to perform? Could she take something that had been forced on her and make it voluntary? Make it her own? Sarah sat with the idea for several days. She talked about it with Dr. Torres. What would performing give you? Dr. Torres asked. I think it would prove something to myself, Sarah said slowly. That I've really healed. That I'm not controlled by fear anymore. That I can choose to be vulnerable instead of having vulnerability forced on me. Those are good reasons. But I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you ready? Because it's okay if you're not. There's no timeline on healing, Sarah thought carefully. Was she ready? A few months ago, absolutely not, but now? She had been playing regularly for 4 months. She could play the nocturne all the way through without panicking. She had written an original piece that she was proud of. She was not the same person who had broken down in the hotel lobby. I think I might be ready, Sarah said, but I want to do it on my own terms. I want to choose what I play. I want it to be clear that this is my choice. Then I think you should do it. Sarah sent an email to Linda. She said she would be interested in performing a short piano piece at the spring gala, if there was still space in the program. She emphasized that this was voluntary and that she was choosing to participate. Linda's response was immediate and enthusiastic. She said she was thrilled Sarah wanted to perform, and that there was definitely space for her. She also said she would make sure there was no pressure, and that Sarah could back out at any time if she changed her mind. Sarah appreciated Linda's sensitivity. It made her feel safe, supported, the opposite of how Marcus had made her feel. The gala was scheduled for late March. That gave Sarah about 6 weeks to prepare. She decided she would perform her original piece. The melody she had been working on since December. She had expanded it into a full song now, about 3 minutes long, nothing fancy or technically difficult. But it was heartfelt and genuine. It was hers. Sarah practiced her piece every day, sometimes at the music school, sometimes on the electric keyboard she had bought for her apartment. She wanted it to be smooth and confident. She wanted to be able to play it even if she got nervous. She also started doing visualization exercises that Dr. Torres taught her. She would close her eyes and imagine herself at the gala, walking up to the piano, sitting down, playing her piece all the way through, finishing and standing up. People clapping. Her feeling proud instead of ashamed. The visualization was hard at first. Her mind wanted to jump to worst-case scenarios, forgetting the notes, panicking on stage, everyone staring at her breakdown. But Sarah gently redirected her thoughts each time. She focused on the positive outcome, on succeeding, on choosing vulnerability and having it go well. As March approached, Sarah felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. This was so different from the competition when she was 13. Back then, she had been performing to prove her worth, to make her father proud, to win a prize. Now she was performing simply because she wanted to, because she had something to share, because making music brought her joy. 2 weeks before the gala, Sarah did something brave. She invited James from work to one of her practice sessions. She wanted to play her piece for someone before the actual performance. James agreed enthusiastically and met her at the music school on Saturday afternoon. Sarah was nervous as she sat down at the piano, but James was relaxed and supportive. He sat in a chair in the corner and gave her an encouraging smile. "Whenever you're ready," he said. Sarah took a breath and began to play. Her fingers moved across the keys, playing the melody she had created. It started soft and gentle, built to something more emotional in the middle, then resolved back to softness at the end. When she finished, she looked up at James nervously. He was smiling. "That was really beautiful, Sarah, seriously. Is that an original composition?" "Yeah, I wrote it over the past few months." "It's great, really, you should be proud." Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. He meant it. She could tell, and more importantly, she was proud. She had created something. She had worked hard on it, and it had turned out well. James pulled out his guitar and played something for her. It was a simple folk melody. Then they experimented with playing together. Sarah improvised some piano accompaniment to James's guitar. It was messy and imperfect, but it was fun. They laughed when they got off sync. They tried again. For the first time since she was a child, Sarah was making music with someone else purely for the joy of it. No pressure, no competition, just two people sharing something they loved. After that practice session, Sarah felt more confident about the gala. She had shared her music with someone and it had gone well. She could do this. The week before the gala, Sarah went shopping for an outfit. She wanted something that felt like her, not the formal black dress she had worn at 13, something more personal. She found a deep blue dress that was elegant but comfortable. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she felt good. She felt like herself. The night before the gala, Sarah called her mother. She told her about the performance, about how she had been practicing, about the original piece she was going to play. "I'm so proud of you," her mother said, and Sarah heard tears in her voice. "I'm so proud of how far you've come." "Thanks, Mom. I wish I could be there to see you. Maybe someday you will be." They talked for a little longer, then said goodnight. Sarah went to bed early, wanting to be well rested for the next day. The day of the gala arrived. Sarah woke up feeling surprisingly calm. She had done the work. She was prepared. This was her choice. She spent the morning relaxing. She went for a walk. She ate a good lunch. She practiced her piece one more time on her keyboard at home. In the late afternoon, Sarah got dressed and did her makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was different from the girl who had broken down in the hotel lobby 5 months ago. Stronger, more confident, more whole. Sarah drove to the venue where the gala was being held. It was a beautiful event space with high ceilings and elegant decorations. People were already arriving, dressed in formal attire. Sarah checked in and found her seat at a table with some co-workers she liked. The evening began with dinner. Sarah ate lightly, not wanting to feel too full before performing. She chatted with the people at her table. The atmosphere was festive and warm. After dinner, Linda got up to give a speech about the company's achievements over the past year. Then she introduced the entertainment portion of the evening. There would be 3 performances. A coworker who sang, another who did magic tricks, and Sarah on piano. The first notes floated out into the room, soft and gentle. Sarah's hands moved across the keys with confidence. This was her music, her creation. Every note was intentional. Every phrase was meaningful. She was not performing someone else's work. She was sharing a piece of herself. The melody started quiet, almost hesitant, like someone testing the water before diving in. Then it grew stronger, more assured. The middle section built with emotion. Not sadness exactly, but something complex. Longing mixed with hope, struggle mixed with determination. Sarah poured everything she had been feeling over the past 5 months into those notes. The pain of the breakdown, the hard work of healing, the joy of rediscovering something she loved. As she played, Sarah felt completely present. She was not thinking about the audience. She was not worried about making mistakes. She was simply playing music, being in the moment, letting the sound wash over her and through her. The piece reached its emotional peak, then began to resolve. The melody returned to something quieter, gentler, not the same as the beginning, but transformed. Like someone who had been through something difficult and come out different on the other side, stronger but also softer, more aware of their own fragility and power at the same time. Sarah played the final notes and let them ring out into the room. The last chord faded slowly into silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then the applause started. Not polite applause, not obligatory clapping, but real, genuine appreciation. People were smiling. Some were even wiping their eyes. Sarah stood up from the piano bench and faced the audience. She felt tears on her own cheeks, but they were good tears. She had done it. She had chosen to be vulnerable, and it had been beautiful. She bowed slightly and walked back to her table. People reached out to touch her arm or squeeze her hand as she passed. Linda gave her a thumbs up. When Sarah sat down, the woman next to her leaned over and whispered, "That was stunning. Did you write that yourself?" "I did," Sarah said, and felt pride swell in her chest. "It was incredible. You're really talented." Sarah accepted the compliment with grace. She was learning to do that. To receive praise without deflecting or minimizing. To simply say thank you and believe it. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations. So many people wanted to talk to her about the performance, to tell her how much they enjoyed it, to ask about her musical background. Sarah found herself telling parts of her story. Not everything, but enough. She told them she used to play as a child, took a long break, and had recently started again. Some people remembered the incident at the hotel in October. They said how wonderful it was to see her back at the piano. James found her near the end of the night. "I knew you could do it," he said with a grin. "That was even better than when you played it for me." "Thanks for being my test audience," Sarah said. "That really helped. Anytime. Hey, I've been writing some new songs. Want to work on them together sometime?" "I'd love that." They made plans to meet the following week. Sarah left the gala feeling lighter than air. She had faced one of her biggest fears and come through it. Not just survived it, thrived in it. She had taken something that once represented her deepest trauma and transformed it into something beautiful. That night, Sarah called Dr. Torres and left a voicemail. "I did it. I performed. And it was amazing. Thank you for everything." The next morning, Sarah woke up and the first thing she felt was joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. She had performed music in front of people and nothing bad had happened. The world had not ended. She had not fallen apart. She had simply shared something meaningful and people had received it with appreciation. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in Sarah's life. It was subtle but significant. She felt more confident at work. She spoke up more in meetings. She set boundaries more easily. She was less afraid of disappointing people or being judged. The healing she had done around the piano had rippled out into other areas of her life. In April, Sarah had a phone call with her father. It was brief and somewhat awkward, as their conversations always were. But toward the end, he said something unexpected. "Your mother told me you performed at your company event." "Yeah, I played piano, an original piece I wrote." There was a pause. Then her father said, "That's good. I'm glad you're playing again." It was not an apology. It was not an acknowledgement of the harm he had caused. But it was something. A small opening. Sarah decided to take it. "Thanks, Dad, it's been really healing for me. Working through some old stuff." Another pause. "Well, good, that's good." They moved on to other topics. But Sarah hung up feeling like maybe eventually they could have a more honest conversation. Maybe her father would never fully understand or apologize for what he had done, but maybe that was okay. She could heal without his acknowledgement. She could move forward without his approval. Sarah continued her weekly practice sessions. She and James started meeting regularly to work on music together. Sometimes they played in the practice rooms at the music school. Sometimes at James's apartment where he had more space. They experimented with different styles and sounds. Jazz improvisation, folk melodies, even some rock covers. Making music with James was different from anything Sarah had experienced before. There was no competition, no judgment. Just two people enjoying the creative process together. They laughed at their mistakes. They celebrated when something sounded good. It was fun. Music was fun again. In May, Dr. Torres suggested that Sarah might be ready to graduate from therapy. "I think you've done incredible work," Dr. Torres said during their session. You've processed your trauma. You've learned to set boundaries. You've reclaimed your relationship with music. You've grown so much. Sarah felt a mix of pride and sadness. She had come to value these weekly sessions. They had been a safe place to explore difficult feelings and work through hard things. But she also recognized that Dr. Torres was right. She did not need therapy in the same way anymore. She had the tools now. She could continue the work on her own. "What if I still need help sometimes?" Sarah asked. "Then you come back. Therapy doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can take breaks and return when you need support. My door is always open." They agreed that Sarah would transition to monthly check-ins rather than weekly sessions. It felt like the right balance. Sarah was not abandoning the work. She was just moving to the next phase. In June, Sarah made a big decision. She had been thinking about it for weeks, turning it over in her mind. Finally, she felt ready. She emailed the music school and asked about teaching opportunities. She explained that she was an experienced pianist who had recently returned to playing. She was interested in teaching beginners, particularly adults who wanted to learn piano later in life. The music school director called her within 2 days. They had been looking for new teachers. She asked Sarah to come in for an interview and to demonstrate her playing. Sarah agreed, feeling nervous but excited. The interview went well. Sarah played several pieces, including her original composition. The director was impressed. She offered Sarah a few students to start with. Just a handful of hours per week. Sarah could teach on evenings and weekends, keeping her marketing job for stability. Sarah accepted immediately. She would start teaching in July. When Sarah told Rachel about the teaching position, Rachel hugged her tight. "I'm so proud of you. Look how far you've come." It was true. 6 months ago, Sarah could not even think about piano without feeling sick. Now she was going to teach it to others. She was going to share her knowledge and passion. She was going to help other people discover the joy of music. Sarah's first student was a woman named Patricia. She was 53 years old and had always wanted to learn piano, but never had the chance when she was younger. Now that her kids were grown, she finally had time for herself. She was nervous and self-conscious about being a beginner at her age. Sarah understood that feeling completely. She worked with Patricia gently, patiently. She taught her basic finger positions and simple melodies. She encouraged her when she got frustrated. She celebrated with her when she played her first complete song. Teaching Patricia reminded Sarah of why she had loved music in the first place. It was not about being the best or winning competitions. It was about the simple pleasure of creating sound, of learning something new, of expressing yourself through notes and rhythms. Over the summer, Sarah took on more students. A retired accountant who wanted to fulfill a lifelong dream, a college student who played guitar and wanted to add piano skills, a 10-year-old boy whose parents wanted him to learn but did not want to push too hard. Sarah approached each student as an individual. She asked them what they wanted from piano lessons, what their goals were. She tailored her teaching to fit their needs and interests. Sarah was especially careful with the young students. She never wanted to recreate the harsh, demanding environment she had experienced with Mr. Peterson. She made lessons fun. She let students choose songs they wanted to learn. She praised effort and improvement, not just perfection. If a student made mistakes, she helped them learn from those mistakes without shame. One afternoon in August, Sarah was teaching a lesson when she had a profound realization. She was sitting at the piano with her 10-year-old student, showing him how to play a simple melody. The boy was struggling with a particular transition between chords. "Will your father be there?" her mother asked carefully. "No, I didn't invite him." "Okay, that's okay. Maybe someday. Maybe." The week before the festival, Sarah had a dream. She was back at the Youth Piano Championship as a 13-year-old. She was wearing the tight black dress. She walked onto the stage and sat at the piano. The lights were bright. The audience was huge. She placed her hands on the keys and started to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. But in the dream, something was different. When she reached the difficult section where she usually made mistakes, her fingers moved smoothly, perfectly. She played through the entire piece without a single error. When she finished, the audience erupted in applause. She stood up and bowed. And when she looked into the audience, she saw her 13-year-old self sitting in the front row, smiling and clapping. Sarah woke up from the dream feeling peaceful. She understood what it meant. She had forgiven her younger self. She had reclaimed that moment. It no longer had power over her. The day of the festival arrived with perfect autumn weather. Cool but sunny. The leaves were changing colors. The festival was held in a large park in the center of town. There were booths with local artists and craftspeople, food trucks, children's activities, and several stages for musical performances. Sarah arrived early to check out the stage where she would perform. It was a simple outdoor setup. A small wooden stage with a digital piano, a few rows of chairs in front for people who wanted to sit. But most people would be walking around, stopping to listen if something caught their attention. Sarah's mother arrived mid-morning. She pulled Sarah into a tight hug. "I'm so nervous for you," her mother said. "I'm okay, Mom, really, I know you are. You're so strong, stronger than I ever was." Rachel and James showed up about an hour before Sarah's performance time. They brought coffee and snacks and moral support. They sat together on the grass near the stage, watching other performers and enjoying the festival atmosphere. When it was almost time for Sarah's set, she felt butterflies in her stomach. But they were good butterflies. Anticipation rather than dread. She stood up and stretched. She did some of the breathing exercises Dr. Torres had taught her. She was ready. Sarah walked onto the stage as the previous performer finished. The festival host introduced her as a local pianist and teacher. Sarah sat down at the digital piano and adjusted the bench. She looked out at the scattered audience. Maybe 30 people sitting in chairs, others standing or walking by, families with children, elderly couples, young adults, a mix of people just enjoying a Saturday in the park. Sarah took a breath and began to play. She started with a simple piece by Mozart. Light and cheerful, perfect for a sunny autumn day. Some people stopped walking to listen. A few more sat down in the chairs. Sarah moved through her set, playing each piece with care and attention. She was not thinking about being perfect. She was just sharing music. When she transitioned between songs, she spoke briefly to the audience. She told them a little about each piece. She kept her comments short and friendly. Halfway through her set, Sarah played a popular song that many people recognized. She saw people's faces light up. Some started swaying to the music. A little girl near the front started dancing. Sarah smiled as she played, feeding off the positive energy. For her final piece, Sarah played her original composition, the one she had written over months of healing, the one that represented her journey from brokenness to wholeness. As she played, she saw her mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face. She saw Rachel beaming with pride. She saw James nodding along to the melody. But most importantly, Sarah felt herself fully present, fully alive, playing music not because she had to, but because she wanted to, because it brought her joy, because sharing that joy with others was a gift she could give. When Sarah played the final notes, the applause was warm and genuine. People stood up. Children clapped enthusiastically. Someone whistled. Sarah stood and bowed, feeling a sense of completion wash over her. This was it. This was the moment she had been working toward. Not the performance itself, but what it represented. She had taken something that had caused her deep trauma and transformed it. She had faced her fear and found courage on the other side. She had reclaimed a part of herself that had been lost for 15 years. Sarah walked off the stage and was immediately surrounded by people. Her mother hugged her tightly. "You were wonderful. So beautiful." Rachel and James congratulated her. Strangers came up to compliment her playing and ask questions. A few people asked for her contact information, interested in piano lessons. Sarah felt overwhelmed in the best way possible. As the afternoon went on and the festival continued, Sarah walked around with her mother and friends. They looked at art booths. They ate food from the trucks. They listened to other performers. Sarah felt light, free, happy in a way she had not felt in years. Later that evening, after her mother had started the drive back home and Rachel and James had left, Sarah sat alone in her apartment. She thought about the journey she had been on, from the breakdown in the hotel lobby to performing at a community festival, from panic attacks to peace, from avoidance to engagement. It had not been easy. There had been moments of intense difficulty, times when she wanted to give up, times when the work of healing felt too hard, but she had kept going. She had shown up to therapy every week. She had forced herself to practice even when it scared her. She had been brave in ways she never thought possible. Sarah opened her laptop and started writing. She wanted to document this experience, Not just for herself, but maybe for others who might be going through something similar. She wrote about the competition when she was 13, about her father's reaction, about the 15 years of avoidance, about Marcus in the hotel lobby, about therapy and healing, about returning to piano, about teaching, about performing. As she wrote, Sarah realized that her story was not just about piano. It was about shame and fear and the ways trauma can control your life. But it was also about resilience and healing and the possibility of reclaiming what has been taken from you. Sarah thought about her students, about Patricia, the 53-year-old beginner who was learning to play despite feeling self-conscious about her age, about the 10-year-old boy who was learning that mistakes were okay, about all the people who had dreams they had deferred or abandoned because they were afraid. Maybe her story could help them. Maybe sharing her journey would give someone else the courage to face their own fears. Sarah finished writing and saved the document. She would work on it more over the coming weeks, polish it, maybe share it on a blog or submit it somewhere. But for now it was enough to have written it down, to have honored her own experience. Sarah got ready for bed, feeling tired but content. As she lay in the dark, she thought about the piano. Not with fear or sadness, but with affection. The piano had been a source of pain for so long. But now it was something else. A tool for expression, a source of joy, a bridge to connection with others. She thought about her younger self, the 13-year-old girl in the tight black dress, terrified on stage. Sarah sent her love across the years. "You did your best," she whispered into the darkness. "You were enough. You are enough." And for the first time in 15 years, Sarah truly believed it. The next morning, Sarah woke up and did something she had not done in a very long time. She sat at her electric keyboard in her apartment and just played, not practicing for anything, not preparing for a performance or a lesson, just playing for the pure joy of it. She improvised melodies. She experimented with harmonies. She let her fingers wander across the keys without judgment or expectation. This was what music was supposed to be. This was what she had lost and found again. Not perfection. Not validation from others. Just the simple, beautiful act of creating sound. Sarah played for almost an hour, smiling the entire time. When she finally stopped, she felt full. Not of food or achievement or external validation, but of something internal. Something that could not be taken away by other people's opinions or past failures. She felt joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. And she knew, deep in her bones, that she would carry this feeling with her for the rest of her life. The piano was hers again. Music was hers again. And most importantly, she was hers again. Sarah stood up from the keyboard and looked out her window at the city below. It was a beautiful Sunday morning. The sun was shining. People were out walking. Life was happening all around her. And for the first time in 15 years, Sarah felt fully part of it. Not hiding, not avoiding, not running from her past, just living, present, whole, healed. She had taken back what was stolen from her. She had transformed her pain into purpose. She had learned that healing was not about erasing the past, but about changing your relationship to it. She had discovered that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. Sarah thought about everything that had happened since that night in October, when Marcus had forced her to play piano in the hotel lobby. Part of her wished it had never happened. It had been painful and humiliating and traumatic, but another part of her recognized that it had been a catalyst. It had forced her to confront something she had been avoiding for 15 years. It had pushed her toward healing.